water. It's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca Rosano here, back with the Raptors Nation podcast on this Thursday, January 16, 2025. Hope you're all doing well. The Toronto Raptors are coming off back-to-back wins. Yes, just like that, the Raptors are on a two-game winning streak. They beat the Golden State Warriors on Monday night. They beat the defending champion Boston Celtics on Wednesday night. The Celtics had beaten the Raptors 10 straight times. The Raptors not only beating the Celtics, but they outplayed the Celtics. And now the Raptors have a chance for their first three-game winning streak of the season when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow night. But there's been a lot of discussion about where this team stands in terms of tanking or not, trying to be competitive or not. We're going to get into that. I'm going to talk more about the Raptors win over the Celtics, some of my takeaways from that game, and then we're going to look at the latest trade rumors involving the Toronto Raptors. And there's something interesting that just came out about an hour ago that I did want to include in today's show. So we're going to dive right into it. Do me a solid, everybody. Drop a like on the video. Sub to the channel for more. You can find this podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Apple, iTunes, Spotify. Please leave us a 5-star review. It helps it a ton. Please subscribe to this channel for pods, post-game videos, news videos, trade videos, everything related to the Raptors you can find on this channel. And be sure to check out all of our work over at raptorsnation.com, updating the website daily as it's busy season, right? The trade deadline is a few weeks away. February 6th is going to be here in no time, and the Raptors could end up being a major player at the trade deadline. So definitely keep it locked and loaded with all of the platforms listed. All right, let's get into it. The Raptors upset the Celtics. I did not have this on my bingo card in 2025, folks. I did not think I'd ever utter the words Raptors outplay Celtics this year. Like, I did not see that being a reality. And the Boston Celtics, they're not playing well right now. And the Raptors took full advantage of that. They are a very unserious team. They chucked up a ton of threes. They live and die by the three. They died by the three against the Raptors. And Boston, they did not look like the defending NBA champion. Meanwhile, the Raptors looked like a team that wasn't with the fourth worst record in the NBA. They look like a team that wasn't rebuilding or contemplating a tank. They actually looked good and they look competitive. And you take a look at this one, just some of the takeaways I had. You got to start with the offense. I thought the offense was running smoothly. Ball movement was impeccable. Felt like everyone was touching it. And that's evident with the Raptors starters all having good games. You know, Scotty Barnes, 18 points, 9 assists. Jakob Poeltl was a perfect 8 for 8 from the field. RJ Barrett, his playmaking was solid as well. He had an all-around game. He outplayed Jason Tatum. How many times can you say that? I thought this was easily the best two-way performance by the Toronto Raptors. And going back to them sharing the basketball, 35 assists on 44 made field goals. They only had 10 turnovers. Ran the offense super efficiently. They shot it better from the field, and the Celtics, they were not good from the field or from three. So a lot of that is the Celtics being stubborn in their approach and just jacking up threes, but you also got to credit the Raptors defense. They did a good job holding one of the better offenses in all of basketball to under 100 points. So this was truly the Raptors' most impressive victory of the season from both sides of the ball. They came into this one and really you didn't get the feel. Maybe there was one moment in the fourth where you got a bit of a feeling like, okay, the Celtics going to turn up a notch and march a comeback, but the Raptors relatively kept this game in check, you know, in that fourth quarter on their way to closing this one out. So The offense and the defense really stepped up to the plate. Another big takeaway, Jamal Shead. His emergence has been great to watch, guys. You talk about guys moving the ball, touching it. You also want to see guys be selfish at times and not pass up open looks. Davion Mitchell did a good job of hitting a couple of threes, and I thought he's been playing really well as of late, stepping in for Emmanuel Quickly, doing a great job on both ends. His three-point shot has been coming along. That's another nice takeaway in all this. But more specifically, Shed, he has been really good. And it's funny because he joked around about RJ Barrett cussing him out because he would pass up open shots, and that's per TSN's Josh Lewenberg. But Shed has been shooting it really well. In 50 minutes against the Celtics, he scored 8 points from off the bench, 3 for 6 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. And he's made significant progress with that 3-point shot, which is amazing to see because you could tell the Raptors are high on him. He's young. He's got a lot of good upside. He's definitely a part of this team's future plans. Shed has hit 10 of his last 14 3-pointers. So that is awesome development. And if Shed can be a consistent outside shot maker, and if he continues to shoot it like this, like even not at this level, because I think it's unrealistic to say he's going to hit 10 out of 14 threes moving forward, but just be a consistent, efficient 3-point shooter, what he's going to give it defensively. He can be a valuable two-way force for this Raptors team. So I really liked what I've seen from Shed. He's come up big in key moments against good teams, and you could tell the Raptors are putting a lot of faith in him with the playing time that they have given him. And they see a lot of value in Shed. Mobo, Walter, those guys have been assigned to Raptors 905, but Shed continues to get key rotation minutes. And even when Emmanuel Quickly comes back, we saw it, he was getting the nod over Davion Mitchell in terms of playing time and in terms of being that first guard from off the bench. So you could tell that the Raptors have been really impressed with Shed. He's really stepped it up a notch in his game, and he's really been shining in his rookie season. So he has come along really, really nicely for this Raptors team. And then just another takeaway, Raptors can't catch a break. I mean, Abaji, he did get hurt. He had to leave the game in the first half, had to get stitches actually, but he is officially questionable for the Bucks game. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be too serious. But I'm more concerned about Emmanuel Quickly because he has been ruled out for the third consecutive game now against the Bucks. He will not play tomorrow night. And it seems like another injury has hit Emmanuel Quickly. And this is the really concerning part. So it is deemed the left hip injury, according to Sports Illustrated's Jared Rose. And then according to Rose, Riakovic said that Quickly has been dealing with the injury for some time now. So that kind of like caught me off guard a bit. And reportedly, Quickly has been playing through the injury before it flared up on him earlier in the week. So you got to think like, this is a guy who's already dealt with a pelvic issue that he sustained on opening night. Then he gets the UCL sprain in November. He comes back, and now he's dealing with a completely different left hip injury. Like, these injuries have really derailed Quickly's season. This is a guy that's only played in 9 games so far, following the massive contract that the Raptors gave him. And it's really been tough for the Raptors to truly evaluate what they have out of their core of Quickly, Barnes, Barrett, and then the bigger thing being the projected starting 5. Those guys have only played in 4 games together. So just to sum it up, like Emmanuel Quickly's season has been decimated with injuries. And now we don't know how long he's going to be out with this one and if it's going to linger. So that's the more concerning part here. And hopefully, like, Quickly doesn't end up being that injury prone guy. I don't even want to use that label, but 3 injuries now. We'll see how much time he misses with this. I really hope he can shake off this injury bug because it just seems like he can't catch a break right now and he can't stay on the floor. And for a Raptors team that paid him what they did this offseason, that's not what you want to see. You wanted to see Quickly out there taking a leap next to Barnes and Barrett. So that's something to keep an eye out for when it comes to Emmanuel Quickly, and if he can sustain a stretch at some point this season where he plays in games without missing any time due to some lingering injury or some new injury. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, guys, we're going to move on now. Tank or no tank? Deal or no deal? So I did want to bring this up because I did put something out this morning on X. Go follow me if you aren't already at Luca Rosano 3. Here, I'll pop it up here so you guys can just see the question. It has been getting a lot of traction. And I just wanted to propose the question, and I'll propose the question to all of you and give you my take on it. So I said Raptors have the easiest remaining schedule in NBA. If they continue to rack up wins, I could see the Jazz, Blazers, and Nets pass them in the tankathon. As you can see here, it's Wizards, Pelicans, Hornets, Raptors, fourth as of now, but the Jazz, Blazers, and Nets, who just lost by 59 against the Clippers, they're right behind the Raptors. So the question is, would you be disappointed if the Raptors don't end up with a top 3 pick? Or would you still be happy with them picking number 4 through 7? So let me answer the question myself. Would I be disappointed if the Raptors don't end up with a top 3 pick? I would. And the reason why I would is because I think that top 3 is special. And I think that top 3 is head and shoulders above the rest. There's a reason why those 3 players in Flag, Harper, Bailey have been touted to being the projected top 3 picks in this draft for a while now. They are that good. And when you look at Flag, I think he's got superstar potential, undoubtedly. You see what he's doing, but just, him going up against the USA team, just looking at his game, he's going to be ultra special for whoever nabs him. But Harper and Bailey, I still think are game-changing talents. I'm higher on Bailey. I think the Raptors need a guy like Bailey who's just a score first, a lead scoring guy who can be selfish and just take over a game, because I think that's what this roster is lacking right now. For as good as Scotty Barnes is, I see him like that jack of all trades. I don't see him as that guy who can close out a game, killer instincts. Emmanuel Quickley's been on the shelf. We can't even properly evaluate him. RJ Barrett is more of a piece. I don't necessarily see him as a top 1 or top 2 star on a championship team. He's more like your third piece in this scenario. So the Raptors, you could say they have their face of the franchise, so they don't need a face of the franchise in one of these top 3 picks because they have Scotty Barnes, but I'm not sold yet on Barnes being the guy. I think these 3 players have a chance to being the guy. I think Flag has the better chance, the best chance when it comes to being the guy. And if the Raptors get him, they're really cooking. But I think Bailey and Harper have a chance to be that upper echelon talent. And you look at the Raptors, yeah, you could say they've been injured. That's why the record is a mess, but they need talent. And if you don't add a top pick to this team, the team ceiling healthy is a play-in team. It's not a top 6 team. But then if you add in an elite talent, one of those names I just mentioned, you could potentially make the playoffs next season. If not next season, most definitely the season after that. I know Scalabrini and Bonner talked about that. Scalabrini believes if the Raptors get flagged, they're in the top 6 next season. And that's a viable take. So I would be disappointed because these drafts don't come around too often. And the last really good draft with a really good prospect was the Victor Wembanyama draft, and the Raptors stupidly decided to go for it. And even if the NBA wasn't going to give the Raptors Wemby, there was still Brandon Miller. There was still Scoot Henderson. And don't knock Scoot. He's starting to show you some of his upside. That was the last really good draft, and the Raptors decided to go for it. Completely messed that up. Here they are again. Really good draft on the horizon. You don't want to mess it up again, especially since the Raptors have already done this losing. They've already given themselves a leg up over some of those bottom teams in terms of draft lottery position. If the Raptors are going to win games now, that is absolutely meaningless. And I know you can still get a good talent in that middle range, 4 to 7. But man, you came this far. You did all this losing. You've given yourself a leg up. You only got half a season left to endure. Do it right. Give yourself a chance at getting a top 3 pick, which will really set this franchise up nicely for years to come. Now, that's not to say the Raptors still can't salvage it. And if they end up 5th or 6th and they get a good pick, I'm not saying they're doomed forever, but I think that won't put them in the ideal position as if they did get a top 3 pick. I'm kind of preparing myself now for the disappointment because I could see it coming. You start to see it now. When I listed those 7 teams, unfortunately, the Raptors roster isn't as bad as those teams. The Raptors, I'm not talking record-wise, just face value, they're better than those 7 teams that I just pulled up who are in the tankathon. And their schedule is going to get ridiculously easy or easier. And it's going to be the easiest remaining schedule, as I just said. So I just think it would end up being a big missed opportunity if the Raptors start winning a ton of games and put themselves out of it. I'd much rather the Raptors put themselves in the best position and let the lottery gods do their thing than win a bunch of games now and effectively take them out or lower their chances when it comes to trying to get a top pick. And I know you guys can say, oh, the lottery, look at years past. The worst team never gets the first round pick. Look at the Pistons. I'd rather take my chances on the lottery. I'm willing to do that because the alternative, I mean, there is no alternative. What's the alternative? You win games for what? Like you try to go after a play-in spot that you're one and done, or you barely miss out on the play-in and then you end up with the 7th or 8th pick when you could have given yourself a better chance of getting a higher pick if you just lost more games. Like, this season should be a wash for the Raptors, just given what the record is. So if they decide to just start winning now, sure, it makes the players feel good. Sure, it restores some balance with this team. But big picture, and I'm always looking big picture, I don't think it satisfies what this team's trying to accomplish long term. And that's trying to be relevant again and compete for a championships. So that's my take on that. I think because they're in this position now, you got to go for it. If the Raptors were a 500 team now and they were winning from the start, yeah, my tune probably would be different, because at that point it's like, okay, like, they're already here. They've shown you what they can do. But because their record is what it is, I think it would be the stupidest thing ever to start winning games now and effectively hurt your draft lottery chances. All right, guys, the last thing I wanted to talk about here are just the latest trade rumors out of Raptors land. And I just wanted to provide some quick trade updates. Jakob Poeltl's name came up because Mark Stein appeared on Sportsnet's The Raptors Show with Blake Murphy. Go check out that interview. A lot of valuable tidbits. So when it came to Jakob Poeltl, Mark Stein says that there's no urgency in moving him, saying, I do think the Raptors are only going to trade him on their terms. They're under zero pressure to do so. There's a need in the league for big men, so I would anticipate 2 things. A, the Raptors would continue to be patient in the extreme and continue to tell teams no. And then B, if the offers get better, they'll have a decision to make, because the other thing is the phone won't stop ringing. So that makes complete sense. I don't think the Raptors are going to move Poeltl unless there's a grand slam home run type deal. If teams are banking on the Raptors to move Poeltl just for the sake of moving Poeltl, and then that could lean into the conversation I just had about the tank, because a lot of people are saying trade Poeltl and it makes you effectively worse. I just don't see the Raptors parting ways with Poeltl, especially since he's not an expiring contract. That probably would have changed the tone. So yeah, based on the assumption of this team, the Raptors are not going to trade Poeltl unless they get like a home run haul. But we know it's harder to make deals for larger contracts now under the new CBA. And even like some of these deals that we've been seeing, like second round picks have been the thing that's been going out there. It seems like first round picks are only reserved now for star level players. So that's the thing about Poeltl. Then we learned about Boucher. He talked about Boucher, Mark Stein did, saying that people are talking about Chris Boucher a lot more because of how well he's been playing lately. There's no doubt about it. And he's certainly someone who is at least perceived as available. So Boucher is a guy who's definitely risen his trade value. And, you know, he cooled off against the Celtics, but that 4-game stretch was special. And if Boucher ultimately does get moved, that's going to be looked back on as being one of the most memorable stretches of Boucher's time here in Toronto. And it's kind of cool for him that he is getting this final hurrah, if you will, because I think it's safe to say if the Raptors don't trade him, there is probably no world where they bring him back. He is an unrestricted free agent, so he's set to sign with any team this summer. So this is basically the last call for Boucher. Whether or not he's traded remains to be seen. But I think with Boucher, it'd be easier to move him. 10.8 million is absorbable. I think contending teams could use a guy like Boucher from off their bench. And I think in terms of the asking price, you're probably looking at second round draft compensation. So if you're the Raptors, I could see them moving Boucher when it comes to that. And then just some other players that were briefly mentioned. Stein did mention that Bruce Brown is available ahead of the trade deadline. That's to no one's surprise. And then he also said that the Raptors do like Kelly Olynyk, and he's on a manageable contract where they don't have to force a trade for him now. So it does seem like Olynyk staying put based on those sentiments. But then the most interesting tidbit that came out was literally 2 hours ago. And that is that some of the Raptors expiring contracts, and I'm talking Bruce Brown, Davion Mitchell, who's a restricted free agent, and then Boucher, those could end up being valuable parts in a blockbuster Jimmy Butler trade, because according to Doug Smith of The Star, who put this out a few hours ago, sources around the league believe that the Raptors are trying to enter the Jimmy Butler trade sweepstakes by being facilitators in the trade. You look at Butler's making $48 million. He's got a $52 million player option for next season. And it's never been more difficult to make a trade involving a larger contract, certainly at this price point. But the Raptors having those expiring contracts could allow them to enter a Jimmy Butler deal as a third or fourth team. This is what Doug Smith was writing about. And you look at the Raptors, they do have those expiring contracts. Bruce Brown's $23 million, Boucher's $10.8, Davion Mitchell $6.4. And those could be in a larger blockbuster deal centered around Butler. And then Smith went on to say the Raptors don't want to take much longer term money in a trade, but they would be open to taking one long-term contract if it meant adding draft capital. Now, no names were mentioned in a potential framework of a deal, but the Raptors getting involved in a Butler trade is likely the only way they become key players ahead of the February 6th trade deadline, per Smith. So that is very interesting. And you know what? It makes sense because you're talking about all these guys who are rumored to be on the trade block for the Raptors. You talk about how individually they're tough to move. Well, Bruce Brown being the toughest, but they could be tough to move individually, especially Brown making $23 million. When you look at them collectively, they could be useful in a deal that helps execute a larger trade. And I know the Raptors would have to take on probably one long-term contract that wouldn't be perceived as making much sense, and they wouldn't necessarily want it. But the benefit in kind of playing the catalyst here is you get to move on from those expiring contracts. Yeah, you maybe got to eat up one bad one, but then you get paid with draft compensation. And for a rebuilding team like the Raptors, who would want to get something, draft compensation for their expiring contracts anyway, this makes the most sense and is probably the most logical pathway to getting it done when you're talking about moving one or more of these players. And why not do it in one center deal? And if you are helping a team get Butler and you're helping this trade go down, whether it's as a third or fourth team, you get rewarded with draft compensation. So I think that would be an ultimate win for the Raptors, and I think that would be wise for them to want to get involved. So I thought that was very interesting. We'll see what happens with the Butler situation. His 7-game suspension expires tomorrow. He will rejoin Miami, but as reported by Shams, he basically told Pat Riley to his face that he wants to be traded. So we'll see which side wins. Is Pat Riley going to be stubborn and not give Jimmy his way, or will he budge, and will we see a trade go down? And could the Toronto Raptors ultimately be a big player in a blockbuster Jimmy Butler trade that goes down before the February 6th trade deadline? So this is all interesting stuff to be on the lookout for. That is going to conclude today's pod. A lot in there, jam-packed episode. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Have at it at the comment section down below. Again, like this show. It helps it a ton. Subscribe, Rate the show of 5 stars on Apple iTunes, Spotify. Follow me on X at Luca Rosano 3. We'll be back at it again this week, and the Raptors are in action on Friday against the Bucks. And we'll see if this team makes it 3 in a row and all of a sudden they start winning. Or get back to the norm for the season of losing a lot of games. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Like, sub. Thank you so much for your continued support. As of me, it's Luke signing off. I will catch you all again in the next one.